Good morning, friends and kin. It's good to see you today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join me. It's starting to get a little bit warmer where I live, and we had our winter cold snap and our snowmageddon, and you'd think the world was coming to an end, and the grocery stores would never have milk or eggs again. But everything kind of just went back to normal like it always does. That kind of weather here, people freak out over it, and it never lasts very long. But this time, it was actually the nice stuff. It was fluffy snow instead of just solid ice, which is what we normally get around here if we ever get winter precipitation at all. But things are starting to bloom. Uh, Animals are getting a little bit more active, and starting to feel a little less frigid outside. And we're easing into a nice, warm, comfy spring. I hope all is well wherever you may be in the world. And this morning, been leaning more on my pipe lately, but this is what I'm firing up today. Cornell and Deal's Lone Sentinel, part of a line of tobaccos, kind of old school Virginia grown tobacco. I think all of them come in plug form, which just kind of looks like the square brick of tobacco. And you've got to cut it into slices and rub it out. And a lot of people don't have patience for all that, but man, I love them. And Virginia Flakes are typically the kind of pipe tobaccos that I gravitate toward. And the plug just adds that extra step of having to cut it up in slices before you can kind of rub it out into a ribbon. Pipe tobacco really is an obsession of mine and has been for a long time. And I know I derail on my cigars and pipes on this channel, and I appreciate you sticking with me in spite of the fact that I have my ADHD moments where I derail on that stuff. But again, I love sharing the things I love. So today, I know I said I was going to add a little bit more variety to our readings in Sundee Service, but I wanted to continue where we left off with Anam Cara from last Sunday, because this is when he starts to define what the word Anamkara means. And I think this would be I wanted to continue on with this because this would make a good follow up to the things we talked about last week. The Anamkara. And I'm sure I probably am mispronouncing things. Please forgive me. I'm an English speaker, and a lot of these words that are either Scots dialect or Irish Gaelic, I'm very clueless on how to pronounce those things. I give it my best shot, and that's what you're left with. In the Celtic tradition, there is a beautiful understanding of love and friendship. One of the fascinating ideas here is the idea of soul love. The old Gaelic term for this is anam cara. Anam is Gaelic word for soul, and cara is the word for friend. Anam is whoops, I accidentally skipped a line. So Anamkara is the Celtic word. So Anamkara in the Celtic world was the soul friend. In the early Celtic church, a person who acted as a teacher, companion, or spiritual guide was called an Anamkara. It originally referred to someone to whom you confessed, revealing the hidden intimacies of your life. With the Anamkara, you could share your innermost self, your mind, and your heart. This friendship was an act of recognition and belonging. When you had an Anamkara, your friendship cut across all convention. morality, and category. You were joined in an ancient and eternal way with the friend of your soul. The Celtic understanding did not set limitations of space or time on the soul. There is no cage for the soul. The soul is a divine light that flows into you and into your other. This art of belonging awakened and fostered a deep and special companionship. In his conferences, John Cassian says this bond between friends is indissoluble. This, I say, is what is broken by no chances, what no interval of time or space can sever or destroy, and what even death itself cannot part. In everyone's life, there is a great need for an anamkara, a soul friend. In this love, you are understood as you are without mask or pretension. The superficial and functional lies and half-truths of social acquaintance fall away. You can be as you really are. Love allows understanding to dawn, and understanding is precious. Where you are understood, you are at home. Understanding nourishes belonging. When you really feel understood, you feel free to release yourself into the trust and shelter of the other person's soul. This recognition is described in a beautiful line from Pablo Neruda. You are like nobody since I love you. This art of love discloses the special and sacred identity of the other person. Love is the only light that can truly read the secret signature of the other person's individuality and soul. Love alone is literate in the world of origin and can decipher identity and destiny. I'm going to stop there. Because what Mr. John is describing there is a beautiful experience. Being in a place where you can remove all masks and boundaries and barriers, and being able to have that kind of vulnerability is a scary prospect. It's terrifying, in fact. But I think the world we live in does not value this idea at all. And over the course of my life, I think that's part of what led to my sense of disenchantment with the world that I was born into. It's because so many connections are, and especially the ones we put up on pedestals and celebrate, they're superficial. They barely breach being skin deep. You know, all through my life, I can remember the entertainment I was exposed to, whether it was, I mean, anything from comic books, movies, TV shows, whatever. You know, the notion was sex sells. So everything was hypersexualized. I mean, even in comic books. And guys who are my age, I'll be 43 this year. Uh, you know, we all remember comic books back in like the 80s and 90s. They started going into this transition where, you know, male and female characters both, their costumes, like, barely left anything to mystery what was underneath. And, you know, they were all skin tight. The contours were meant to be, you know, these characters were sexualized, is what I'm getting at. I mean, we can analyze it as deep as we want, but the characters became way more sexualized. And that wasn't exactly a new thing, but you know, back in, and I'm thinking of like the 1960s Batman series with Adam West. you know, Catwoman was definitely a sexualized character, not so much Batman or Robin, but you know the that was the idea, you know, that an image that was sexually stimulating would sell regardless of the context, and that theory in advertising definitely proved to be right. But you know the what was being glorified there was just the sexual attraction. And I remember as I grew up and started to uh, kind of understand myself as a person capable of intimacy. And it was a very difficult. I mean, it's even. I think it's even more difficult now. But but I remember that was a very turbulent period of my life, trying to figure out how to connect with people on an intimate level, and I mean that physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because you know it was just the the base animalistic impulse seemed to be what society glorified, and to you know to meet society's demands and expectations, people you know who could afford it anyway would get all kinds of cosmetic surgeries and all sorts of procedures to try to make themselves more physically attractive. And because again, this was in every media source, just the act of physical sex was put on such a high pedestal and glorified that that seems to be all people really cared about for the most part. And you know that always left me feeling hollow, those types of relationships, and I mean really hollow. And over the course of my life, as I would try to connect with people in the way Mr. O'Donohue describes in the passage we just read, a lot of times the reaction was fear. Um, I think that people are terrified of that level of what I'll call substantial intimacy. And again, just to make sure we're on the same page here, what I mean by substantial intimacy is it's intimacy of substance. It means there's something more than just a raw physical attraction to it. You're connecting with this person in the sense of mind, and where you talk about your perceptions of the world, your worldview, the philosophies and ideologies that you use to gain a sense of clarity and understanding. And you know that's a powerful thing, is connecting to someone to the point where you can on some level understand how they see the world. And in this day and age where the algorithm just constantly sends us shit that reinforces the worldview it thinks we have, and so we log in whenever we're going through our news feeds or uh, you know browsing social media, what we're really doing is logging into an echo chamber, and we don't really discuss things anymore. We scream at each other when somebody expresses an idea that doesn't line up with our worldview. You know, we just throw a temper tantrum and try to cancel them or get rid of them or shut them up, and try to get them blocked and banned on all the social media outlets, or you know put them on blast to make sure nobody else actually talks to them or hears what they have to say. Now there are some cases where I do think revealing predatory, monstrous people is a useful thing. Uh, if somebody is guilty of doing horrible things in a community and they spread the word, I feel like that's a little bit different. But you know, the kind of things I'm talking about is in some witchy communities I've been in, if they find out somebody voted for a Republican, they would put them on blast and try to get them removed from every witch community that they were involved in. Because for whatever reason, we can't seem to uh, to accept that there are ideas and worldviews outside of our own. And I'm including myself in this equation because I have been guilty of it numerous times in my life. And I can't even claim to be completely rid of that bad tendency because I still catch myself in it from time to time. And it falls in the category of one of those things that takes daily work and daily practice to try to overcome. And the tool that I utilize that has served me best in trying in my efforts to overcome that issue is by trying to ask genuine questions, not questions that lead somebody into saying things that I can blast them for. I've seen that done many times. I've been a victim of that a couple of times. Somebody baited that hook, and I took it without even thinking about it. Like, oh, motherfucker, you really tried to just trap me into saying something that you could twist and contort into something totally different. So I've had to learn my lesson the hard way on that a couple times. But I'm talking about genuinely trying to understand the other person instead of just saying, "Oh my God, you voted for a Republican, you fascist Nazi." Maybe step back, take a breath, maybe even ground yourself a little bit, and talk to this member of your community and say, "Well, what made you vote for that person? Was there a specific issue that they stand for that you feel really strongly about?" And and let's talk about that. And sometimes the answers you'll get are really surprising, and also, you know, just nothing like what you expected them to be. And I'm using the voting for a Republican thing as just an example. I've seen behaviors like this um, pop up in a multitude of other contexts. But this whole mindset of here's my worldview, here's my ideology, and if I can't convert other people to it, then I need to banish them from my life and see to it that I'm not even aware of their existence anymore, and validate them to other people. That it's a very toxic mindset, and it gets in the way of learning and growing. And I think ultimately it debilitates our ability to connect with people on substantial levels if the only thing we want out of them is personal validation. Because what goes hand in hand with banishing people and canceling people that don't validate you is the other end of that is trying to surround yourself with people that do validate you. And when your sole uh, desire for somebody is because you know they validate your truth and your perception, that's not a real connection. It's an echo chamber. The way to connect with people on a substantial level is to not just open yourself up to them, but to allow them to open themselves up to you without fear of scorn for expressing their truth. And it's in other words, what I'm getting at here, and what I would like to tack on to what Mr. Donahue had to say about opening up and being vulnerable, and letting go of the boundaries and the facades, the masks, and all this phony, pretentious bullshit that we coat ourselves with. It's a two-way street. So that's what I want to tack on to it. It is a two-way street. if you want to reach that level of honest connection with someone, you have to allow them to do the same and not punish them for being different. And if there are areas where your morals and worldviews are just so incompatible that you can't be around them, then that's okay. It's okay to say, okay, this person adheres to an ideology that I find ethically reprehensible, so I don't need to interact with that person. That's usually where it needs to stop, and that's okay. We all have people we're incompatible with, and there's a meme that gets shared a lot that usually gets torn to shreds by a variety of different types of people. It's a guy holding a sign that says, "We can disagree and still be friends," and then people rip it to pieces, and try to insert all kinds of crazy scenarios as to why you can't be friends with people you disagree with. And some of that's valid, uh, but I think what a better way to word what people that post that meme are trying to get at, it's not so much about being friends with people you disagree with. It's about not being enemies with people you disagree with. Just because somebody doesn't see God the same way you do doesn't mean you have to make them a mortal enemy. Just because somebody doesn't vote the same way you do. I mean, there's going to be cases where people vote in ways that pass laws that have a negative effect on you. And in that sense, vocalize how those decisions hurt you. But again, you can debate those people and confront them and try to explain how these things harm you. And you can do that without making them an enemy. So I think what that sign should really say is we can disagree and not try to kill each other. And I think that more accurately represents my stance on that. We can disagree without wanting to destroy one another. But one of the most challenging things for me in trying to put some of these things I learned from Mr. O'Donohue into practice is trying to connect in a substantial way with people that I disagree with. But what I mean by substantial is actually trying to understand their background. And if they have a stance on a topic that I find revolting, rather than just getting in their face and saying, "Oh, that's revolting. You're an asshole. You're a Nazi. You're or whatever the case may be." Rather than doing that, it's like, yeah, I really don't see things the same way, but I'm interested in understanding what made you draw that conclusion. If you feel this way on this topic, I without any desire to belittle you or make light of it, I mean, I will listen. Please help me understand how you arrived at that conclusion. And then I make good on what I said. I listen. And I think that's something we really struggle with in our culture is just being able to listen without reacting. That's the big part. Listening without emotionally reacting. And not that emotional reactions are bad, but I don't think knee-jerk emotional reactions are the best thing to use as a tool for navigating forward. But that being said, I think learning to listen and learning to understand, and even to a degree develop empathy for people that you don't see eye to eye with, it goes a long way to, even if it can't build bridges, it goes a long way to prevent unnecessary conflict. And with those thoughts, I'm going to leave you for today. I appreciate you joining me here for Sundee Service, friends and kin. I hope you're well. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.